My name is Emma, and this is the story of how my best friend tore my world apart, and how I stitched it back together with a revenge so precise it cut without a blade. I'm 32, a marketing director in Seattle, where the rain is a constant hum and the Puget Sound's gray waves are my daily view. My apartment, perched on a hill with floor-to-ceiling windows, is my sanctuary, a testament to years of late nights and relentless ambition in a cutthroat industry. I've built a career that's as much my identity as my name. But this isn't about my job. It's about Sarah, my best friend of 10 years, and the betrayal that nearly destroyed me, until I turned it into my triumph. Sarah and I met as freshmen at the University of Washington, two kids thrown into a dorm that reeked of instant noodles and dreams. I was the pragmatist, my desk a fortress of color-coded planners, she was the artist, her side a whirlwind of sketchbooks and paint-splattered jeans. We bonded over midnight coffee runs and shared secrets. Her wild curls and infectious laugh a perfect counterpoint to my measured calm. We were inseparable, the kind of friends who could communicate with a glance. Our dorm room became a microcosm of our worlds, my side neat, with textbooks stacked by subject, hers a chaos of art supplies and half-finished canvases. We'd stay up late, her sketching while I studied, trading stories about our hometowns, our fears, our futures. She grew up in a small Oregon town, her parents artists who encouraged her creativity but left her financially adrift. I was from Seattle, raised by a single mom who taught me discipline and sacrifice. Our differences made us stronger, or so I thought. After graduation, I dove into the corporate world, climbing the marketing ladder, while Sarah freelanced as a graphic designer. Her talent was undeniable, but her discipline was patchy. I became her safety net, paying for dinners when her gigs dried up, covering her rent during lean months, connecting her with clients I'd met through work. "You're my rock, Em," she'd say, her hazel eyes warm with gratitude. I believed her. I trusted her with my whole heart. Over the years, our friendship deepened through shared milestones. My first big promotion, her first gallery show, countless birthdays celebrated with cheap wine and rooftop talks. We had a tradition of hiking Mount Rainier every summer, just the two of us, where we'd sit on the peak, the world spread out below, and promise to always have each other's backs. I thought those moments were sacred. Proof of a bond that could weather anything. The betrayal hit last April, when Seattle's cherry blossoms painted the streets pink, a cruel backdrop to the storm about to break. I was deep into the biggest pitch of my career, a campaign for Green Thread, a sustainable fashion brand. It was my shot at a VP promotion, the kind of role I'd dreamed of since I was a kid watching my single mom work double shifts to keep us afloat. I'd poured 6 months into it, late nights analyzing market trends. Weekends sketching mood boards, hours crafting taglines that sang. Every detail was a piece of me, a reflection of my vision and grit. The campaign wasn't just a project, it was a love letter to my younger self, proof that hard work could rewrite your story. Sarah knew how much it meant. She'd sprawl on my couch, her sketchbook open, listening as I rambled about color palettes or consumer psychology. "You're gonna crush it, Em," she'd say, her smile as bright as the city lights outside my window. I shared everything with her, my ideas, my fears, my draft presentations. I thought she was my safe harbor. Then came the call that shattered it all. It was Mark, a colleague, his voice tight with something I couldn't place. "Emma, you need to see this." He sent me a link to Sarah's online portfolio. My hands trembled as I clicked. There, under her name, was my entire Green Thread campaign, the mood boards I'd agonized over, the taglines I'd rewritten a dozen times, even the confidential client brief I'd shown her in trust. She'd pitched it to Green Thread as her own, and they'd hired her for a freelance contract. My company lost the account. My promotion evaporated. And Sarah? She didn't even have the guts to tell me. I called her, my voice shaking, but she didn't answer. Texts went unread. She'd ghosted me, leaving me to drown in the wreckage of her theft. I sat on my balcony that night, the Puget Sound a dark churn below, the Space Needles glow mocking me in the distance. Tears blurred the city lights as I gripped my coffee mug. Its warmth a faint anchor against the cold in my chest. How could she? I'd given her everything, my time, my money, my secrets. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was a knife in the heart of who I was. I wasn't just Emma, the marketing star, I was Emma, the fool who let her best friend steal her future. The anger came in waves, hot and consuming, but the grief was heavier. I missed her, the Sarah who'd laughed with me until we cried, who'd driven me to the hospital when my mom had her stroke. Who'd promised we'd always have each other. I wanted to scream, to storm her apartment and demand answers, but that wouldn't undo the damage. I needed something sharper. I needed justice. For weeks, I was a ghost. My apartment, once a haven with its soft throw blankets and framed art prints, felt like a cage. The Puget Sound's waves seemed to whisper my failure, and the cherry blossoms outside my office window were a daily taunt. Work was unbearable. Colleagues whispered about the lost account. Their pitying glances worse than any criticism. My boss, usually a hard ass, softened his tone, saying, "We'll get the next one, Emma." It felt like a condolence. I stopped sleeping, my mind replaying every moment with Sarah, searching for signs I'd missed. Had her compliments been calculated? Had her hugs been a performance? The questions gnawed at me, each one a fresh cut. I stopped eating out, cancelled plans with friends, let my inbox pile up. My reflection in the bathroom mirror was a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, defeated. I started questioning everything, not just Sarah, but myself. Had I been too trusting? Too naive? My mom, now retired and living in Tacoma, noticed the change when we talked on the phone. "You sound like you're carrying the world, honey," she said, her voice gentle but probing. I brushed it off, unable to admit how deeply I'd been hurt. I didn't want her to worry, not after everything she'd sacrificed for me. But alone in my apartment, I couldn't escape the truth. Sarah's betrayal had cracked something fundamental in me, exposing a vulnerability I'd worked years to bury. I'd always prided myself on my resilience, my ability to push through any obstacle, but this was different. This wasn't a missed deadline or a failed pitch, this was my best friend choosing her ambition over our bond. The weight of it all pressed harder as spring turned to summer. Seattle's endless drizzle felt like it was seeping into my bones, mirroring the fog in my mind. I'd walk to work along the waterfront, the salty air sharp against my skin, and feel like I was moving through someone else's life. My colleagues' encouragement, meant to lift me, only deepened my sense of failure. I'd built my career on precision and control, but Sarah's betrayal exposed how little control I'd had over what mattered most, my trust. I stopped listening to music, something that had always grounded me, because every song reminded me of her. Our old playlists, full of indie bands we'd discovered together, were now landmines. Even the smell of coffee, once a comfort, turned bitter, tied to memories of late-night talks in our dorm. I was unraveling, and the harder I tried to hold myself together, the more I slipped. But one morning, as I stood on my balcony watching the sunrise paint the sound gold, something shifted. I was done crying. Sarah had taken my work, my trust, and my chance at a promotion, but she wouldn't take my spirit. I wasn't the fool here, she was, thinking she could build a career on stolen ideas and get away with it. I started planning, not out of spite, but out of a need to reclaim my story. This wasn't about sinking to her level, it was about rising above it. I poured myself a fresh coffee, opened my laptop, and began to strategize. The Puget Sound sparkled outside, its waves a quiet encouragement, urging me to fight back. First, I needed to know the full scope of her betrayal. Sarah and I had shared a Google Drive for years, and in her arrogance, she hadn't changed the password. I logged in, my heart pounding as I sifted through her files. It was worse than I'd feared. She hadn't just stolen the Green Thread campaign, she'd been lifting my ideas for months, pitching them to other clients, local startups, a craft brewery, even a nonprofit I'd volunteered for. Each file was a new wound, proof of how deeply she'd exploited me. There were my market analyses, repurposed with her name, my branding strategies, tweaked just enough to pass as hers, even my email templates, word for word, sent to her clients. But the files also gave me power. Sarah's success was a house of cards, built on my foundation. All I had to do was pull the right card. My revenge took shape over 3 months, meticulous and deliberate. Sarah's strength was her charisma, she could charm anyone, from clients to baristas. But her weakness? She was lazy, always cutting corners, relying on me to polish her work. I'd use that against her. Step 1 was to rebuild my own campaign. I took the green thread pitch and made it better, bolder colors, sharper messaging. A global perspective that tapped into emerging trends. I spent nights in my apartment, my laptop glowing as I reworked every slide, every statistic. The Puget Sound was my silent witness, its waves a steady rhythm to my resolve. I pitched it to EcoWare, a rival brand with a massive following and deeper pockets. They loved it, signing a contract that made headlines in the industry. The campaign launched to glowing reviews, earning me the VP promotion I'd lost. My colleagues threw a party in the office, toasting my comeback. My boss clapped me on the shoulder, saying, "This is why you're the best." I smiled, but inside, I knew this was just the beginning. Step 2 was where the real work began. Sarah's freelance career thrived on my ideas, but she didn't have the skills to sustain it without me. Her clients, many of whom I'd introduced her to, valued authenticity and originality. I started sowing doubt, carefully and strategically. I reached out to industry contacts, people I'd known for years, and casually mentioned how similar Sarah's work seemed to mine. Her latest pitch looked so familiar, I'd say with a laugh, planting seeds without accusing her outright. "Wow, her style's almost identical to yours," one contact replied, her brow furrowing. "Almost too close," I said, letting her draw her own conclusions. I also launched a blog under a pseudonym, Design with Integrity, where I wrote about ethics in creative work. Posts like The Cost of Copying and Why Originality Matters gained traction, shared by designers, marketers, and influencers. I included subtle references to recent cases of plagiarism, linking to articles about intellectual property without naming Sarah. The blog became a quiet force, sparking debates in our industry and catching the eye of the very clients Sarah relied on. I didn't stop there. I knew Sarah's clients were busy, often too swamped to scrutinize her work closely. So, I created a LinkedIn group called Creative Ethics Forum, inviting designers, marketers, and clients to discuss originality and accountability. I posted articles, shared my blog, and moderated discussions, all under my pseudonym. The group grew to hundreds of members, including some of Sarah's clients. When one posted about a concerning trend of designers passing off others' work, I shared a general checklist for verifying a freelancer's originality. Things like checking timestamps, cross-referencing portfolios, and asking for process documentation. I knew Sarah's work wouldn't hold up under that scrutiny. Sure enough, one of her clients messaged the group, asking how to handle suspicions about a designer's portfolio. I replied with neutral advice, but my heart raced. The seeds were sprouting. To amplify my efforts, I began attending industry meetups in Seattle, subtly steering conversations toward ethics and originality. At a downtown networking event, I chatted with a creative director who worked with one of Sarah's clients. "I've seen some portfolios that feel too polished, like they're borrowing heavily," I said, keeping my tone light. He nodded, mentioning a freelancer whose work had raised red flags. I didn't push, but I knew the ripples were spreading. Back at my apartment, I expanded my blog, adding guest posts from other designers who'd faced similar betrayals. Their stories, anonymous but raw, gave my platform authenticity, drawing more readers and fueling the industry's growing scrutiny of freelancers like Sarah. I also leveraged social media, creating an Instagram account for Design with Integrity. I posted infographics on spotting plagiarism, quotes about creative ethics, and snippets from my blog. The account gained thousands of followers, including influencers who shared my content with their networks. Each post was a dart, aimed not at Sarah directly but at the culture that let her thrive. I knew she was watching. Her own Instagram, once a showcase of her work, had gone quiet, her posts less frequent, her captions less confident. The pressure was mounting, and I hadn't even played my final card. As the final act was the masterstroke. Sarah had landed a speaking gig at CreateCon, a prestigious design conference in Portland. It was her chance to cement her status as a rising star, to network with industry leaders and land bigger clients. I knew she'd lean on my stolen work for her presentation. It was her pattern, her crutch. So, I sent an anonymous tip to the organizers, attaching a detailed comparison of my original green thread campaign and Sarah's portfolio, with timestamps and metadata proving mine came first. I included a link to my blog, framing it as a resource for ethical design, and asked them to verify her work's originality. I didn't demand they cancel her, I just gave them the truth and trusted their integrity. The day of the conference, I watched the live stream from my apartment. A glass of Pinot Gris in hand. My living room was warm, the glow of my laptop casting shadows on the walls. Outside, the Puget Sound was calm, a rare moment of stillness. Sarah took the stage, all confidence and charisma, her wild curls bouncing as she clicked through slides, my slides, repurposed with her logo slapped on them. She was halfway through, basking in the audience's applause, when the moderator stepped forward. "We've received concerning information about the originality of your work," he said, his tone professional but unyielding. "Can you address it?" The room went silent. Sarah's face froze, her smile collapsing like a bad facade. I leaned closer to the screen, my pulse hammering. She stammered, claiming inspiration and collaboration, but the moderator pressed her, citing specific examples from my tip, slide numbers, phrases, even a unique font pairing I'd created. The audience shifted, whispers spreading like wildfire. Someone in the front row pulled out their phone. Likely tweeting. Sarah's voice cracked as she tried to deflect, but the evidence was ironclad. The organizers cut her presentation short, escorting her off stage as the crowd murmured. I exhaled, a weight lifting from my chest. It was done. By the next morning, Sarah's social media was a battlefield. Hashtags like #CreateCon controversy and #DesignEthics trended, with designers and clients dissecting her downfall. Her biggest clients, ones I'd helped her land, issued statements about reviewing their partnerships. Her portfolio vanished from the web, her website replaced with a 404 error. CreateCon released a statement about their commitment to originality, linking to resources on intellectual property, my blog among them. The fallout was swift and merciless. Sarah's castle had crumbled, and I'd barely lifted a finger. I won't lie, it felt incredible. Not cruel, not vicious, but deeply satisfying, like finishing a puzzle after months of searching for the last piece. Watching her fall was a release. A reclaiming of everything she'd taken. Sarah tried to reach out a week later, leaving a voicemail full of sobs and excuses. It was a mistake, Em. I got in over my head. I didn't mean to hurt you. Her voice trembled, but it didn't move me. She'd built her success on my pain, and now she was reaping the consequences. I deleted the message and blocked her number. She didn't deserve my time, not anymore. 8 months later, I'm thriving. The Eco-Wear campaign is a case study in marketing textbooks. And my VP role has me traveling to conferences across the country, speaking to packed rooms about innovation and strategy. My apartment feels like home again, filled with new memories, dinner parties with colleagues, quiet nights with a good book, weekend brunches with friends who respect my boundaries. I've learned to guard my trust, to share it like a rare vintage, only with those who've earned it. The Puget Sound still churns outside my window, but now it feels like a promise of resilience. Not a reminder of failure. I've also started mentoring young marketers, sharing lessons I wish I'd learned sooner. At a recent workshop, a college student asked how to handle professional betrayal. I paused, the memory of Sarah flashing through my mind, and said, "Don't let it define you. Use it to build something stronger." My blog, Design with Integrity, has grown into a platform for ethical creatives, with a newsletter and podcast in the works. I've stepped out from behind the pseudonym, owning my story and using it to inspire others. The industry has taken notice. Last month, I was invited to speak at a national marketing summit, where my session on creative ethics drew a standing ovation. Sarah's out there somewhere, starting over. I hear she's moved to Portland, taking small gigs under a new name. I don't wish her harm, but I don't wish her well either. She'll never climb on my back again. My industry contacts still talk about that CreateCon scandal, and my blog continues to grow. A quiet legacy of my justice. What did I learn? Trust is a currency, not a handout. Betrayal can gut you, strip you bare, but it also reveals your strength. I found mine not in anger, but in the quiet power of rewriting my story. Resilience isn't about avoiding pain, it's about building something stronger from the pieces. Hold your worth close, and never let anyone steal it. That's not just my lesson, it's my victory. This experience has also taught me about forgiveness, not for Sarah, But for myself, I spent months blaming myself for trusting her, for not seeing the signs. But I've let that go. Trusting someone isn't weakness, it's courage. The fault lies with the betrayer, not the betrayed. I've rebuilt my confidence, not by hardening my heart, but by choosing who deserves to be in it. My mom, my colleagues, my new friends, they're my circle now, and I cherish them fiercely. As I write this, I'm on my balcony, the Puget Sound shimmering under a rare winter sun. Seattle's skyline is a reminder of what I've overcome. Its jagged edges softened by the promise of new beginnings. I'm not the same Emma I was a year ago. I'm stronger, wiser, and unafraid to claim my place in the world. Sarah's betrayal was a storm, but I'm the lighthouse, standing tall against the waves. And that's a story worth telling. The journey didn't end with Sarah's downfall. I've since taken steps to protect my work, watermarking my drafts and keeping sensitive files offline. I've also become an advocate for intellectual property rights, speaking at local universities about the importance of safeguarding creative work. My talks are packed with students, their eyes wide as I share my story, not as a victim, but as someone who turned pain into power. I've partnered with a legal nonprofit to offer free workshops for freelancers, teaching them how to spot and report plagiarism. It's my way of giving back, ensuring others don't face what I did. My mom, who's always been my biggest cheerleader, came to one of my talks last month. Afterward, she hugged me tighter than ever, whispering, "I'm so proud of you, Emma." It meant more than any promotion. She's thriving in Tacoma, gardening and volunteering, and we've grown even closer, our weekly calls a ritual I treasure. My new friends, a mix of marketers and creatives, have brought joy back into my life. We explore Seattle's hidden gems, dive bars, farmers markets, quiet beaches, building memories untainted by betrayal. I've even started painting, a hobby inspired by Sarah's old sketchbooks, though I do it for myself, filling canvases with bold colors that reflect my newfound strength. The industry has changed since the Create Con scandal. Clients are more vigilant, demanding proof of originality, and designers are speaking out about ethics. My blog's readership has soared, and I'm planning a book, a blend of memoir and guide, to help creatives navigate the industry's pitfalls. It's a daunting project, but I'm ready. The Puget Sound, ever present outside my window, reminds me daily that storms pass, and what remains is stronger. I've reclaimed my story, my worth, and my future. Sarah's shadow no longer lingers. I am Emma, unbroken, unstoppable, and that's enough.